He was by the Queen's side across 7 decades, her constant companion, and together they visited East Yorkshire and Lincolnshire many times. He came to know and love Lincolnshire, as we'll learn throughout the programme. First tonight, Leanne Brown has been looking through the archives and hearing from some of the people who met him on those visits.
Her Majesty the Queen, accompanied by Prince Philip.
Whether it was the opening of the Humber Bridge in 1981 or visits to the counties around it, His Royal Highness Prince Philip was, in their early days, Her Majesty the Queen's constant companion.
Over at Marblethorpe, the Duke of Edinburgh begins his tour of the flooded areas in a naval dock.
But the Duke of Edinburgh wasn't afraid to take centre stage either. In 1953, he visited Mablethorpe following the worst tidal surge in Lincolnshire's history.
The strong winds that have pounded Britain have swept the sand into great mounds, often blocking roads and hampering the work of salvage.
More than 300 people drowned and thousands of homes were damaged.
We got around Land Rover, which he just acquired.
In the years since, he returned to the area to see the flood defences and the work of the RNLI.
He come into the station and walked down the line of crew with the boss introducing him to every crewman. It was an excitable thing because none of us had been in this position before, and we'd spent a lot of time cleaning and making sure everything was spotless for the visit. You was even polishing your shoes because he's a Navy person so we wanted to look our best. He's going to be missed. There's a big hole to fill there.
For many, Prince Philip will be remembered for his work with young people. On his final visit to the area before retirement, he took a tour of a new school building in Bourne.
Wow, it's just amazing. I mean, never thought he'd come to Bourne.
I think it's really special that he's come to our little school in a little town and he's actually acknowledging our centre.
He asked me if I rode to school on my bike and I said, no, I catch a bus. And he went, you're very lazy.
And of course his name will live on in the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme.
And I can only hope that all of you here are getting something from the extra activities. In all that time out of school when you've got nothing to do, that's really what it was intended to fill.
It's things like that. He's gone out and thought of things which have really helped the young people and worked with them. So he hasn't just tagged along. He's had his own areas and thoughts and done an awful lot of work to make them happen.
Like Her Majesty, he came regularly to Lincolnshire's air bases. This was a visit to RAF Cranwell in 1960 and again in 2009. A pilot himself and an honorary marshal to the Royal Air Force, he had a love of aircraft. And there was always an occasion for Lincolnshire to repay the favour with the Red Arrows, whose aerobatic displays graced the skies of landmark birthdays and anniversaries. It was part of the Queen's Jubilee tour that he accompanied Her Majesty to Scunthorpe. She went to the Lindsay Lodge Hospice and he went to the local hospital radio station. And he didn't stick to his schedule, something that he was known for.
Well, he arrived with a twinkle in his eye, and I was told not to be allowed to be taken off course by him. But after we'd shown him into the main studio, he said, well, what's in that room there? And that was the spare studio, and it was the one room he wasn't to go in. One of the volunteers who was actually engineering the special show we were broadcasting at the time was hidden in there with the lights off. And the Duke said, no, I'd like to see. And he walks in, much to the surprise of the volunteer who was in there. He also noticed some patients and staff on a neighbouring ward. One of the windows was partially opened, so he stuck his head through it.
Wherever she went, he went, always by her side, whether it was at Grimsby Fish Docks, Lincoln University or the Port of Hull. For those that were there, the memories will live on, as communities across East Yorkshire and Lincolnshire now reflect on the passing of the longest-serving British consort, His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh.
Some lovely memories of the so many people who met the Duke on visits to our area, and more later with some of the memories of Lincolnshire, the county that he loved. Well, one man who met the Duke of Edinburgh on numerous visits to Hull and the East Riding is Jim Dick, formerly at Smith & Nephew, but now the Lord Lieutenant of the area. That is the Queen's representative locally. Jim, now in your role, you met the Duke, didn't you, at when you were at Smith & Nephew in Hull? Remind us of that.
Yes, well, the Queen and the Duke came up for the 700th anniversary of the Royal Charter, if you remember, in 1999. And I was privileged to take him around the Smith & Nephew factory, and he actually opened the new global business unit that we had created. And it was a real pleasure and an absolute privilege as well to take him around.
And how did it go? Because he's quite a character when he's out meeting people, isn't he?
He was terrific. Actually, we had worked out that it was 50 years almost to the day that he had previously been there when the old factory that's been demolished now was first opened. And of course, we're making elastoplast and products like that, which he remembered well. And like all these visits, of course, you know, they're timed to perfection. And at one stage, I was a little concerned that we were running behind time. So I said to him, "Sir, I think we need to just move it on a little bit." And he gave me a look and then proceeded to talk to people in the crowd and as much as say, "Don't worry, I'm in charge of this, it'll be fine." And sure enough, we finished about 2 minutes early. So no, he was terrific, absolutely, complete professional and charming, and put everybody at ease. It was a joy.
He was a character so different from the Queen, sometimes making the headlines. Do you think that's why the public so related to him?
Yes, I think so. I mean, because obviously he was consort, the longest serving consort ever, for over 70 years, but he did do a lot of other things himself. I mean, you know, let's remember he served in the war, in the Navy, was mentioned in dispatches, but then of course he was patron of almost 800 organisations. And of course, in 1956, he started the Duke of Edinburgh Award, which is still thriving and has really done an awful lot for youth development in the country.
Very, very good to hear from you tonight, Jim. We're most grateful to you. Thank you for coming on.
Okay, Peter. Thank you.
Yes, the Lord Lieutenant of the East Riding, Jim Dick, talking to me earlier. And by the way, Jim tells me that he sent a letter to Her Majesty with condolences from the people of Hull and the East Riding. Churches across East Yorkshire and Lincolnshire have become focal points for remembrance today. The bells of Lincoln Cathedral rang out to mark the Duke's passing, and preparations are being made for books of condolence for people to sign. Philip Norton has this report.
Candles and a place for community reflection in Holminster following the death of Prince Philip.
Though clearly he's had some illness in the last few months, we weren't expecting it today, and it's a sad time for all of us here at the Minster, and our prayers go to the family and to the nation at this time.
From 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and for the next 7 days, people will be able to come here to light a candle and to remember the Duke of Edinburgh's life and service. Because of the space available in the Minster, people will be able to come inside, and it will be operated with full COVID-secure procedures. In Lincoln, a bell was tolled at the cathedral. A special service will be held tonight, and people can leave their thoughts and condolences online.
We'll be open every day, as we always are, but we'll be open especially from 10 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock for people to be able to come in, light candles, offer prayers, reflect, and remember for themselves and give thanks for Prince Philip.
Clap your hands together, all ye people.
At Grimsby Minster, a special online service was held this evening.
Rest eternal grant unto Prince Philip, O Lord, and may light perpetual shine upon him.
The Minster will be open tomorrow, and people are invited to leave flowers outside. Elsewhere, the former Archbishop of York, the Right Reverend Dr. John Sentamu, said he would miss his sparring partner.
And occasionally you can see a mischief about to arise, and is the greatest tease I've actually known. So as a man, I would say that he was very solid. He loved humor and he loved teasing people. and he loved speaking his mind. So I think I got really very fond of him, and of course the same with Her Majesty the Queen.
The Archbishop of York, the Most Reverend Stephen Cottrell, paid tribute to a remarkable man who lived a life of service dedicated to his country, to his wife, and to his family.
The Duke of Edinburgh is also somebody who's been such a towering figure in our national life for as long as most of us can remember. So my second thought is one of thanksgiving, of a life well lived.
Philip Norton, BBC Look North.
Yes, and I'm sure that many will be visiting the Hull Minster over the next few days, and many, of course, in Lincoln signing that book of condolence virtually. Well, Prince Philip visited Lincolnshire many times, both officially and also in a personal capacity. The leader of Lincolnshire County Council, Councillor Martin Hill, today paid his own tribute. Martin Hill, the Duke loved Lincolnshire, didn't he?
He did. He came many times, both in a public and private capacity, and he was a great supporter of not only Her Majesty, the country, but also this county.
And you got to meet him?
I was in his presence. I was never formally introduced, but what I remember, a very sort of upright and quite stern-looking figure, but also at the same time, there was always this hint of mischievousness about him, which you always felt he was going to say something quite cheeky, which sort of enlivened and made the proceedings go much better. And
of course he wasn't he, ahead of his time when you think about the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme all those years ago.
Well, that was fantastic, and I know in Lincolnshire, as in many other places, the Duke of Edinburgh's award has meant so much to so many young people at the time who've then used that as a stepping stone to actually fulfil their full potential, which is, of course, what he intended all along.
And how sad that it's just 2 months and a day away from his 100th birthday, not quite making that milestone.
Absolutely. It's really sad that, when he came out of hospital, he thought, actually, he's going to be there, to see his century, and it's just not quite made it. And of course, very sad for Her Majesty as well, because her birthday is coming up shortly, and they were together for so many years.
Councillor Hill, very good to chat with you tonight. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Councillor Martin Hill, memories of the love of Lincolnshire by the Duke. Well, whilst the Duke travelled the world, he also retained a special affection for Sandringham, right on the southern edge of our region in North Norfolk. The house today, there has been a steady flow of people bringing flowers and tributes to Prince Philip. Although the main house is just behind those gates, the Duke actually lived in a farmhouse a short distance away. Well, Gemma Dawson now reports on his love for the place.
You're about to see the world's most experienced pluck umbrella.
This was His Royal Highness Prince Philip in his day job, raising a smile as he carried out royal duties.
This is merely to declare that the place is a bit more open than it was before.
But it was here at Sandringham that he liked to relax, speaking in 1991 about farming and the environment.
A great many people in the agricultural industry, put it that way, who are also interested in the conservation of nature.
Since the late 1980s, the Duke of Edinburgh and his family have traditionally spent Christmas at the Norfolk estate. And it was here in December 2011 that he was taken ill, later having a heart operation. In 2017, the Duke finally retired, leaving the Queen to continue work without her loyal companion. Here visiting Hull alone later that year to mark the City of Culture celebrations. The Duke rarely seen in public after that time. This an exception last summer to hand over his role as Colonel-in-Chief of the Rifles. Instead, his retirement was largely spent at his home on the Sandringham estate. When he had a car accident here in 2019, he was prompted to give up driving. To stay safe during the coronavirus pandemic, the Duke mostly shielded with the Queen at Windsor Castle, returning to Windsor earlier this year after a month-long stay in hospital. But his favourite home remained here at Sandringham in the North Norfolk countryside.
Well, some of our most senior politicians have been paying their tributes to the Duke of Edinburgh throughout the day. Earlier, Sir Edward Lee, the MP for Gainsborough, shared his reflections on the life of Prince Philip. Sir Edward, what were your thoughts when you first heard the news today?
Well, I think that it's a life well led and well spent. He died at a very great age. And I think I've always been a great admirer of his for his wit and his pluck and his devotion to the country, really. So I'm sad, but I think we're all rather proud and happy at a life well spent.
Queen said a few years ago, my constant strength and guide. I mean, he's been a pivotal consort to her, hasn't he?
Well, I think in these times of stress and often families have difficulties, I think we're extraordinarily fortunate to have the Queen. I've met her a few times, and I met the Duke of Edinburgh 2 or 3 times. We're extraordinarily fortunate, really out of life's lottery, to have people who are so incredibly devoted to duty. It's a terrible job. It's something you can never escape from. And I think the Queen has that amazing sense of duty. And I think it was very difficult, the Duke of Edinburgh, who after all was a distinguished naval officer, and certainly from my conversations with him, he's very sharp. I mean, for instance, when I first met him, I was a young councillor. I proudly said that, you know, my father was clerk of the Privy Council and that sort of thing. He immediately stopped back, you know, quick as a flash. Oh, the Privy Council, of course, thank God they're over very quickly. You know, he had a very good sort of mordant sense of humour. And, you know, I think that's a tremendous strength. But above all, it must have been so difficult for him as somebody who's so intelligent, so active, with such a bright future ahead of him, to always take second place. And that's constitutionally what he has to do. But of course, we don't know what went on behind the scenes. But we do know, as you said in your question, Peter, that he was her strength.
Very, very good to hear from you tonight. Sir Edward Lee, thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter.
Sir Edward Lee, the MP for Gainsborough, interesting his comments on the incredible sense of duty, something which has shone through so much in all of the discussions over the last few hours. Now let's get the weather forecast now. The details tonight come from Abby Dewhurst.
Hello. Good evening. A cold weekend in store with a chilly northeasterly wind and any showers at the risk, I think, of turning a little bit wintry. But there will be some breaks in the cloud developing and some bright or sunny spells, particularly for parts of East Yorkshire through the day tomorrow. We do have these chilly northeasterly winds, though. They'll start to develop through the day tomorrow along North Sea coast. It really will feel bitter, but then high pressure establishing itself. So next week looks largely dry and settled, and we will see the temperatures rising around 13 or 14 degrees come Tuesday. Looking at the satellite, though, from early today, we've seen this very stubborn weather front. It's brought with it quite a lot of cloud and some patchy drizzly rain. That will gradually ease overnight tonight, but we will see a few showers continuing. Some breaks in the cloud, though, so some clearer spells developing, and these clear spells will allow temperatures to drop down to around -1 or -2 Celsius. A very cold and frosty start to the day tomorrow. High waters then for tomorrow. In Hull, we're looking at 6:38, then again at 6:27. So it is going to be cold, it's going to be frosty as we start the day tomorrow. There'll still be a little bit of lingering cloud across parts of Lincolnshire, but for East Yorkshire and inland areas, we will see plenty of sunshine, but we are at risk of getting caught in a few showers. Some of these might be quite heavy, and given the drop in temperatures, they could even be a little bit wintry. Temperatures reaching around 7 or 8 Celsius, but in exposure of that cold northeasterly wind, it'll probably feel more like about 3 or 4 degrees if you are heading out. Sunday looks to be a largely dry day. There'll be some really nice spells of sunshine, but once again, we are at risk of seeing a couple of showers, temperatures staying below the seasonal average for the time of year, only reaching around 7 or 8 degrees. But we will see those temperatures rising through next week. By around Wednesday, we should be up at 13 degrees Celsius.
Abby, thank you very much indeed. Abby Dewhurst. The Duke's lasting legacy will be his award scheme. It's been running for more than 60 years and has helped thousands of young people find their feet by volunteering and developing new skills. Crispin Rolfe has been speaking to some of those who took part.
DAV is exciting.
Excellent.
Hard work.
The toughest part was probably my expedition.
DAV made me a more rounded person.
Across generations and 144 nations,
the Duke of Edinburgh's award, a programme geared to getting young people out and about, as well as into their communities. Values reflecting Prince Philip's own, and which have helped to shape the lives of so many across East Yorkshire and Lincolnshire.
I first started doing my Duke of Edinburgh when I was 14 years old with the Bronze Award, moved on to the Silver, and then finally completed the Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award in 2018.
In my expedition, the weather was really awful, so we had to work as a team to get to the finish. It gives you the skills that he was passionate about, like the outdoors, and it's helping the young people of Britain.
Prince Philip had recently passed over award ceremony duties to his youngest son, Prince Edward, but the Duke of Edinburgh's legacy will unquestionably live on through a scheme that everyone simply used to calling D of E.
He was an absolute sort of stalwart champion for young people's sort of opportunities and development right the way through until he retired. While this is a sad moment, we are incredibly optimistic about the fact that we can build on his incredible legacy, and the award will still be going strong many, many years from now.
A lot of the people that I've seen complete the award, they come out with having a lot more self-respect, whether that's for themselves or if it's for the people.
Like others, the Duke of Edinburgh's award has had to adapt to cope with the current pandemic, but it's expected to continue long into the future as a fitting legacy for Prince Philip. Crispin Rolfe, BBC Look North.
Yeah, so many been helped and owe so much to the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme. Well, the Duke's dry sense of humour and wit were memorable aspects of his character, especially for those who met him, like the MP for South Holland and the Deepings, Sir John Hayes. Sir John Hayes, good to have you on the programme. What an incredible life of service from the Duke.
Absolutely, and it began even before he was married to Her Majesty. It shouldn't be forgotten that the Duke of Edinburgh served in the Royal Navy with distinction. So his service to his country extended a very long way back into his life. And as you rightly say, a remarkable man, a man of great character too, of course.
Yeah, he was also a character. You were at a reception with him, weren't you? And he got a bit muddled up with name tags. Tell me about that.
Well, he famously had a wry and dry sense of humour. And I remember being at this reception at Buckingham Palace. Obviously, it was a reception with members of Parliament, and we were all obliged to wear name badges to say who we were and where our constituency was. And he, as I was introduced to him, peered very deliberately and decidedly at my badge and came very close and said, "Holland? Holland? That's abroad, isn't it?" And I said, "South Holland, sir." And he said, "Oh, yes, know it very well, know the Fens very well." And with that, I was kind of moved on to the next, as he moved on to the next person. But I knew that I was the kind of foil for his humour and was delighted to be so, He did love Lincolnshire, though, didn't he? He did. He visited my constituency. You know that he was a great wildfowler in his younger days and came and stayed in my constituency, actually, and knew the Lincolnshire Marsh very well. Yes, he did. And as he illustrated by the point about the Fens, he said, "I know the Fens very well," because I knew that he'd been familiar with Lincolnshire and the East Coast. So, yes, a great loss, a great man, a great character. And a terrific sense of humour. He had a terrific sense of humour, didn't he? Probably a short fuse as well. Yes, and of course what you saw through that was an insight into the royal family more generally, and to Her Majesty. Her Majesty, by her nature, by the nature of being our sovereign, isn't able to, doesn't have the freedom that His Royal Highness had to express that humour. But you just imagined, didn't you? I think all of us did, quite what the domestic scene was like. And I'm sure she actually enjoyed that humour too. I'm sure she did. So, John, very good of you to come on and pay tribute tonight. Thank you very much indeed. No, very great pleasure. And as I say, a great loss.
Sir John Hayes. So good tonight to hear his enormous love of Lincolnshire. Now, many people have been paying their respects today, both in person and online. The Duke was a big supporter of the racing industry. And this afternoon, Beverley Racecourse said, "We're all saddened to hearing of the passing of the Duke of Edinburgh." They posted this picture on social media of when he visited in 2002. Councillor Stephen Brady, the leader of Hull City Council, released this statement: "We would like to express our great sorrow at the news of the death of Prince Philip. We were honoured to welcome him into the city in 2009. Councillor Sue Burke, Mayor of Lincoln, has said, "I would like to express my sincere condolences as a mark of the city's respect. The flag above the Guildhall has been lowered to half-mast and will remain so until after the funeral of His Royal Highness." That from Councillor Sue Burke. The chairman and leader of the East Riding of Yorkshire Council says, "We are both deeply saddened. We send our heartfelt condolences and deepest sympathy to Her Majesty, the Queen and members of the royal family. The Union flag will be flown at half-mast on all council buildings until the day after his funeral." And finally, Lincolnshire Police and Humberside Police have paid their condolences to the royal family, and they've changed their profile picture on their social media accounts. Well, that's it from us tonight. Thank you for watching as we remembered the life of service and duty led by His Royal Highness Prince Philip, which brought him to East Yorkshire and Lincolnshire as the constant companion to Her Majesty, the Queen. Thank you for watching. Have a nice evening. Good night.
You're about to see the world's most experienced plucker.